It's the biggest gambling weekend, biggest gambling event of the year. It's the Super Bowl. And both Outside the Lines on SportsCenter, on ESPN, and 60 Minutes did pieces about the sports gambling industry this past weekend. The 60 Minutes one was much longer and more comprehensive, but it did make a point about reminding all of us that, hey, the sports books, they've got the intelligence, they've got the algorithms, they've got the machines, and don't think that you're going to outsmart the machines for very long. You know, we all have hot streaks, Joe, right? We all do really well. We all have advantages that we find from time to time, but no single one person is going to take down Vegas. It's the reason they have all those big shiny hotels out there.
Yeah, I didn't even watch the Outside the Lines piece that was running within SportsCenter throughout the weekend. I saw it pop on a bunch of times, but I didn't really waste my time with it because, listen, we know what the ESPN executives are doing right now. I guarantee you they saw that piece before it aired, okay? And number one to them is protect ESPN Bet. Don't put this in question. It is constantly on your televisions if you're watching any form of that network. So they're not going to do anything crazy. It's not old school Outside the Lines with Bob Lee, where something is going to be uncovered that's going to shock us all. Like, no, that's not what's happening there. On the 60 Minutes piece, I do respect CBS from the standpoint of they're making a lot of money from sports books, and they didn't pull any punches, right? Like, you've got to consider that they're taking money from a number of sports books that we see on display every single weekend. And the big message that you alluded to, Chris, that I felt that was sent in the piece was bettors have no chance. There's more reality to that than not. But I found that was interesting. Now, what they focused on were the most extreme versions of all of it. It was young gamblers that get into a lot of trouble, gamblers that put their entire paychecks into sports books. I guess that occurs. I don't know of anyone that they're down that bad, like their entire paycheck is immediately going into that. But Aaron, that was the big message that I saw, and they kept bringing up AI, just another way of saying the algorithms, because that's what we've always said for years, the algorithms, and now they call it AI with everything. But like, yeah, the message was sent, like, you don't really have much of a chance. But I think it's fair. I don't think it was a bad thing. I didn't think like they were trying to take down the sports betting industry. I think it's a good reminder that this should be used as entertainment, not a way to quit your job eventually, because there are very few people in the world that are able to do that.
Especially if you have an addictive personality, I think it is something you need to be aware of, to be careful.
Yeah. And it's also, lots of things in life, unfortunately, are addictive, not just betting, right? Like cigarettes, addictive, booze, addictive, recreational drugs, addictive. These things that we have attached to our hands 24/7, right? Our phones, addictive, right? And now you could make the argument, I guess, and I saw some of the psychologists that they had in the 60 Minutes piece make the argument, hey, not only is your phone addictive, but now you're putting gambling, sports betting in that phone. You're doubling down on the addictiveness, right? Just keep in mind, and this is a part of all the disclaimers for a reason. But this is kind of a more serious reminder. Like, yeah, if you're having an issue, understand that it's built to make you want to do it, right? Like, sports betting is fun.
Yes.
For those that understand their limits and understand the responsibility that's attached to it. The same way, if I go out on a Saturday night and have a couple of beers, there's responsibility attached to the fact that I'm not going to try to drive home. So understand, A, your limits, and B, the responsibility that comes with being the adult who's partaking in this activity, and understand just how addictive it can be. And so I think that is the big takeaway for me was, hey, they want to make sure, and this is something the government hasn't really, the government invests in anti-tobacco messaging and anti-drunk driving messaging, and anti-drug messaging. And they haven't really invested at all in know your limits messaging. The industry itself has tried to create that messaging. And the government hasn't mandated it yet. And I think that's probably where things go after these pieces like 60 Minutes last night is, hey, maybe there's got to be some government regulation, or at least some people want government regulation on how that piece is handled.
Or even just like unit shaming. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if you guys have been around people's like, oh, you're only putting that on it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like, well, one of us isn't down 30,000. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Wow.
there's
Yeah.
got to be like, I see unit shaming, and it's kind of like, all right, so you're chasing now. It just can get spiral out of control quickly, you know?
There's a lot to address there. Also, as humans, we love to brag about our wins. We don't like to talk about our losses. Like, there's that. Like, there may be people, oh, I know this guy, he just hit on this and he hit on that. Did he tell you about the losses? No, he's not talking about those losses, right? Like, if you start tailing everything, you're going to start to see where the losses are if they're going to share everything. There's that element. The addiction element, that's what I found actually most interesting, even though we know it all exists. That, and something to think about when you see these massive bets come in, because for most of us, the sports books that are available, if you're winning, they cut you off, or you are limited to like $5 bets or whatever. And if you see a sports book promote, like, yeah, we just took $250,000 from this bettor on this side, you know what? There's a reason they took $250,000 from that person, because whether they win or lose, they don't care, because they're going to give it back to them, because they've targeted them as an addictive losing bettor. That's why they took the wager, and now they're going to use this promotion to their advantage. Like, there's a lot of games being played, and they talked in the piece also about how just promoting certain things. Okay, we're going to fool people on this, is basically what they were saying. Like, we're going to get people to bet this if we promote this or that. Also notable, DraftKings was supposed to be part of the interview. They canceled. They decided to back out and not talk to 60 Minutes because they probably knew what this was about.